Well, I'm delighted to be here with you. I wasn't able to go to our ministers' conference because I was unwell, and I was gutted because it would have been my 19th conference. I spoke at the SCBA ministers' conference the year before I was appointed as team leader, and I've done another 18 of those, or I would have done another 18 this last October, but I was unwell and couldn't be there. But I was reflecting over the meal table. There's that feeling when you get together for the first day of the conference and you have the meal. There's that feeling, it's the sort of feeling of, you're enjoying a meal that you haven't had to prepare, and, the responsibility is off you just for a few days. And it's a good feeling, isn't it? So I'm really pleased to be here with you, and I'm pleased to be here with you as the President of the Baptist Union, and to be in the presence of a past President of the Baptist Union with Yinka there. So, and on behalf of Baptists Together, I bring warm greetings. In July 2020, unbeknown to me, I was about to enter the worst period of my life. I was already suffering extreme back pain, and upon having an MRI scan, I was straight away admitted to the Milton Keynes University Hospital with multiple compression fractures in my back and my ribs, with the underlying condition, which was diagnosed in about 3 days, of spinal myeloma, which is a blood cancer. Ultimately, this is incurable, but as they said, highly treatable. And in the last 16 months, I've spent 11 weeks in total in hospital being treated. In April, I underwent a stem cell transplant from which I've made a good recovery. And with a maintenance course, the prognosis is several years of remission. In October, I spent another 2 weeks in hospital with a fungal lung infection which arose through being immunosuppressed. Now, I say all of this not just to rehearse my medical history with you. I say this because these last, 18 months or so, they have shaped the way that I am. They have shaped the person that I've become. But I share it with you also because, firstly, I'm enormously grateful to the wonderful National Health Service and the medical care that I've received. But secondly, I'm very, very grateful for the love and the many prayers of the Baptist family, which have supported and sustained me and my family over this period, and which have made such a difference. So I come to you with a heart full of gratitude. We're going to listen to a piece of music. Now, that music will have appealed to some of you more than others, I recognise that. But it was a recording of a live performance by an ensemble called the Music Serenade, of a Dvorak Slavonic dance arranged for wind octet, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons, and 2 French horns. I was one of the performers playing the bassoon, and it was broadcast on Radio 3 in May 1985, shortly before I left the music profession to train for Baptist ministry. Though I say so myself, it's very good. It's very good. But what amazes me is not only the beauty of the playing, but the way that 8 musicians play this piece. And this was one piece in a programme of an hour, live, so no second takes or anything, live. But the way that the 8 musicians play this piece and a number of other works with such precision and also togetherness. Now, how do we do this? Well, by listening very carefully to each other. Yet more than this, by being attentive to each other and watching for body language. Sometimes the smallest inflection of the head or the eye or the arm. And this attentiveness is refined, it was refined through hours of playing together. We were the wind section of the English Northern Philharmonia, the Orchestra of Opera North, and we knew each other's playing intimately. Now, what's true of this particular, the thing I didn't say is, of course, there was no conductor, so just 8 players, right? What's true of this particular ensemble is true of any good music group. It could be a string quartet, could be a jazz quintet, or a rock band, or any grouping of musicians. Attentiveness to the other performers is absolutely vital. In an orchestra, the conductor plays an important role, although I still recall the advice of a seasoned professional who said, "Whatever you do, don't look at the conductor." And I found that to be true many times. But the playing with others, the listening, the watching, the intuiting is how a performance comes together. Being attentive. And what goes for the practice of the musicians also goes for the practice of those who are listening. Music might be used while you wait on the phone, or in lifts, or in shopping malls, background music. But music is meant to be listened to. And any kind of music, not just maybe the music that you heard a few moments ago, but any kind of music is to be listened to, it's to be attended to. And I would say the same about all of the arts and many other aspects of life and living. So as somebody called Larry McMurtry puts it, in all of life there is the rule. The things that don't matter can be regarded with indifference and forgotten. The good things of life take priority, but the best and deepest are discovered only through attentive waiting. Only one thing is needful. Many of the words of God in the scriptures call God's people to look, to see, to listen, to take heed. Tomorrow we're going to be thinking a bit about that passage in Matthew's Gospel, and Eugene Peterson in The Message, he translates it this way: give your entire attention to what God is doing right now. Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now. I think of Moses turning aside to see the burning bush. The transfiguration of Jesus. Mary and Martha, there is need of only one thing is needed. Attentiveness is being fully present in the moment. We were reminded about that in our worship earlier on. Not the past, not the future, but now. Attentiveness is looking long enough. It's about focused attention. I like going around art galleries. It's very interesting in an art gallery watching other people go around the gallery, because some people just sort of zoom right the way through. If you ever go to the Royal Academy and see the summer exhibition, it's quite an experience, because it's one of those occasions when anybody can send in art, and so you have painters that you might recognise and others you've never heard of before, painters who've never been hung in the Royal Academy before. And there's so many paintings, it's a bit like the good and the bad and the ugly. You sort of go around and you think, but the thing is, there are so many paintings, but you can go around and just take the lot in a very general sense. But to get the most out of it, you need to stand in front of the painting and give the painting your attention. One of the things that I've picked up, and I try to do this, is when I'm out for a walk, if a tree, for example, the other day, the light was catching a tree in a certain way, it's very easy to think, oh wow, that looks lovely, and then carry on walking. But to stop and look at whatever it is for 15 seconds. I've found that when I've done that, later on in the day I remember the experience, but if I haven't, it's just become part of the day. That sort of focused attention. Attentiveness is looking freshly at what's familiar, seeing with new eyes. Elizabeth Barrett Browning, in a very popular verse, she says, "Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit round and pluck blackberries." Attentiveness is being available. It's becoming aware. Attentiveness is waiting with expectation. Mary Oliver, the poet, and a woman who towards the end of her life came out as a Christian. Many of her later poems were more explicitly religious. She has instructions for living a life. A very short poem. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. Sounds a bit like the gospel, really, doesn't it? Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. Paradoxically, attentiveness may be just the opposite of fixing our attention. Instead, it involves a letting go of our usual need to control and an opening of ourselves to what we're being told or what we're being shown. Our instinct is to hold on. We might describe love, whether that's the love of friendship or of lovers or of compassion, as focused attention. And David Augsburger, he writes about listening, but I think you can apply it to being attentive. He says, being listened to, and I want to add the words, being given focused attention is so close to being loved that most people cannot tell the difference. That's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Being given focused attention is so close to being loved that most people cannot tell the difference. Well, all of this is by way of a general introduction to what I want to explore tomorrow in being attentive to rhythms of grace. But why this theme? Well, I want to say that it isn't something that I just plucked from the air, but something that I've desired throughout the whole of my life and ministry. It's about God. It's about our experience of God. And it's about our disposition, our orientation towards God. And at the heart of this is the belief that God is always present to us. God cannot not be present. God does not know how to be absent. God is to be found in all things. Now, we experience God in different ways. Some ordinary ways, but also from time to time in such a way that we have that sense of being surprised by grace. And I've been thinking back at this juncture in my life, having been very unwell and also about to retire from this role. I've been thinking back on some of those moments when I've been surprised by grace. I think back to when I was 16 and I heard Arthur Blessed. Does anybody remember Arthur Blessed? This very colourful character that used to walk around the world carrying a cross. And I heard him speak, and I'd grown up in church, and I'd given my life to the Lord countless times. But actually on this occasion, something really did happen for me that was, for that moment, life-changing. I remember going to Moortown Baptist Church in Leeds when I was at Opera North. My faith had sort of fallen by the way, and I went to this church, and a group of 4 people sang a song a cappella. They sang in 4-part harmony. It was a song from St Michael the Belfry, which was the Church of David Watson, if you know that. It was Jesus my Saviour, oh how I love you. And it touched my heart really deeply, and I think that was a moment when I was surprised by grace, because I wasn't really sure as to whether to make the entry into church life again and to really take on faith. It was going to be a huge cost to me in the light of the lifestyle that I was leading. I've got I think it's quite an interesting story. You probably think it's dead boring, but no, it was a Good Friday when I was a musician and I was playing in a performance of Handel's Messiah. And during the rehearsal, there were lots of pauses, and I was reading a book. I was reading The Lord of the Rings, and a couple of the women who were playing this was a freelance gig. They came up to me and they said, "What are you reading?" And I said, "I'm reading Lord of the Rings." And they went, "We thought you were reading the Bible, and we thought that was the last thing you'd be reading." So going back to church and making that sort of entry into that other world was quite. But I was surprised by grace. I found out that the church was a bit charismatic, and I didn't know quite what to make of that. I was a bit. So I thought I'll get a book. So I bought David Watson's One in the Spirit. I didn't know who David Watson was at that stage. And then I remember coming back from work one Saturday evening, having read quite a lot of the book, and I prayed that God would fill me with his Spirit. And he did, and I had this really strange experience of speaking in another language. That was another time of being surprised by grace. Generally, I've been surprised by grace through contemplative spirituality. At about the same time, I picked up a very popular book at the time by Richard Foster, Celebration of Discipline. And that opened up another whole world. I think of occasions as part of a worshipping community. I think of praying at home in the early morning. I think of a contemplative practice. Colin and I have talked about our mutual journey, and the spiritual exercises of Ignatius of Loyola have been a real means of grace to me. Silent prayer, imaginative contemplation. I think of a visit to the ecumenical community of Thésée in France. Of someone praying for me at the close of do you remember the Toronto Blessing? I went to a Toronto Blessing meeting and somebody prayed for me, and they said, "Veni Sancte Spiritus." And I fell on the floor. And then, a conversation with a friend that's been so much more than just a conversation with a friend. I think of maybe a celebration with family, of listening to a symphony by Gustav Mahler. I won't play you any of that, okay? But wonderful, wonderful composer. Of reading a poem by Mary Oliver. Of seeing the sunset in Umbria. Somehow in these varied situations, I've experienced grace and encountered God. Well, tomorrow I'm going to look at being attentive to rhythms of grace in a number of different areas. And then I want to look at the theme in one particular area. And then later on in the day, I have the opportunity to take a look at the Enneagram, something I'm really enthusiastic about, which I've found enables us to be attentive to ourselves and also to each other. So that gives you an idea of maybe where I'm coming from and where I'm going. And I really am looking forward to spending these next few days with you.